Okay, welcome, and now we're going to start talking about symmetry, zeros, and maximum values of the absolute value of r. Okay, so if we notice in the last example that we did, we saw that not only did we trace the circle twice, going from 0 to 2 pi, but also notice that it had symmetry with respect to the line pi over 2. And so if we would have known about the symmetry beforehand, we would have been able to plot this with plotting less. We would have been able to get away with plotting less points. Okay, so let's talk about the different types of symmetry when we're dealing with polar forms, polar equations. Okay, first of all, the first symmetry is with respect to the line pi over 2, which means that this line pi over 2, that if there's symmetry, then there's going to be a corresponding point, right, over on this side, right, that goes to what? It's going to be, excuse me, pi minus theta, right? So this would be pi minus theta. Okay, so we could do this point here, we could do r comma pi minus theta, okay? Or we could do negative r and negative theta. That would also work, because we could do negative theta and then negative r, flip it across this way and get to the same spot, okay? Now, what about with respect to the polar axis? So now, if we look at the polar axis here, if it has symmetry with respect to the polar axis, then we would be looking at something like this. Negative theta, or all the way around, right? But typically we do negative theta. So in this case, if there's a point here, there would be a corresponding point that we would plot over on r comma negative theta. Or we could do what? Negative r comma what? Pi minus theta. And then finally, what about symmetry with respect to the pole? Okay, that would mean that if we have a point here, we have another corresponding point, 180 degrees, that we would plot over on this side. Okay, and so that would be over here. Now, to get to that point, it would be pi plus theta. So it would be r comma theta plus pi, or what could we do? We could also do what? Negative r, right? We could do the opposite value of r with theta. Okay? So we could go opposite value of r and go theta, or we could do what? R and then do theta plus pi. Okay, and that is it. So next we're going to talk about tests for symmetry in polar coordinates.